Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Down Syndrome Center podcast. As always, I am your host, Dr. Kishore Vellody, and we have two guests with us today who are going to be telling us a little bit about a very important topic known as advocacy. Advocacy is something that is so important for people with Down syndrome, and I'm really excited to get to talk to my two guests today, Jawanda and Rachel Mast, who are on this podcast with me today. Guys, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, good to have you with us. Well, how about this? Before we get too far into it, Jawanda and Rachel, if you guys want to share just briefly who you are and what you do, why advocacy is so important to you.
Well, I think I'm going to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rachel's introduction is a little bit longer. Rachel's almost 22 years old. Just in just a few weeks, she's going to be 22. And when she was born, we had a prenatal diagnosis. And so before she was born, we started looking into, services. And I've always been kind of a mover and shaker kind of person. And I started learning fairly quickly that we were probably going to need to do some advocacy, and specifically policy advocacy, because there were a lot of systemic issues that needed change. Sure. So when she was born, we hit the road doing all kinds of things from early intervention to school inclusion. And kind of in a nutshell, I say that we've been advocating for school and community inclusion and for public policies that empower individuals with disabilities to live their dreams since she was born.
That's awesome.
And we actually started attending NDSC conference when Rachel was 2. So
okay.
we've been doing that for a long time.
A long time.
Then,
yeah, and how about you, Rachel? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So I'm Rachel. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm 21 years old. I graduated from Aleva South High School in 2018. I was in classes with my friends. I was the volleyball manager and a participant on Swing Castle for 4 years. I love to dance and act. I am a Jesus warrior.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with us. And why don't we get into it? Jawanda, tell us a little bit about the National Down Syndrome Congress and the work that is being done there in policy and advocacy.
Well, as I said, we started attending conferences when Rachel was about 2. So we got involved with NDSC really early, and I was always attracted to the advocacy workshops and people that worked in advocacy, and kind of jumped in. And as we became more entrenched in advocacy and the needs of people around the country, one of the first things, Rachel's been healthy, so we've been very fortunate, but one of the first things, for us, one of the first things we learned about even before she was before she was born, was, she wants to get married, so maybe my brain's on that.
Yeah. She looks pretty happy about that one right there.
Yeah, she'd like to tell you about her boyfriend before this is over. Sometimes she'd like to do that, but before she was even born, one of the first things people said to us was, you can't save money because she can't have more than $2,000 in assets. And that seemed crazy to me, but no, that was true. So that was even before she was born, I learned that it was going to be important to do policy. And then, of course, there were some things when she was younger, but the big thing is school education. And I don't think the general public, I certainly didn't and wouldn't if I didn't have Rachel, understands what a battle it is for families to get their children the services that they are insured by law to have, a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And so that was one of the things we had to fight really hard for and had to stay on top of all the way through. So some of those things that happened to me personally connected me to advocates on the national level. I've known Ricky Sabia, who's the senior policy advisor for education, and Stephanie Lee, who's senior policy advisor in general, for NDSC since Rachel was little, and long before she started school. But I started going to things and hearing them and getting to know them, and they helped me personally, but they also helped me. I was the director of a Down syndrome group, and they helped me to be able to know how to help those families with policy issues, be it education or some other access issue. So it just became very clear to me how important it was to get involved in advocacy. I had done some advocacy in the past just because of some of the nonprofit work I had done. So it was kind of a natural segue for me. And I believe grassroots advocacy is so important, just the being at the grassroots level and helping our people to understand what they need to do to get information out there to make a difference. Be that at the local school board, the county commission, your mayor, state legislature, or national. You know, there's all kinds of levels we need to be involved in. So because I work so much in grassroots advocacy, one of the things that happened for me is NDSC invited me to be, I do grassroots advocacy consulting now, and they invited me to coordinate the advocacy training boot camp. And we may talk about that a little more later. Or do you want me to go ahead and talk about it now, Kishore?
No, tell us about the boot camp. I think it's a great time to tell us about it.
And I think Rachel's probably going to talk a little bit about it too. But 4 years ago, we started the Advocacy Training Boot Camp. It is a boot camp, and it is aimed at beginning advocates around the country. And this actually was born out of Heather Sachs, who is the policy director for NDSC. She just believed from everything she heard from advocates that they needed help. It wasn't that they didn't want to be advocates. They want to be advocates. They want to make a difference for their children, but they didn't know how. So we started this boot camp, have had incredible reaction to it. Great turnouts for it each year. It's in conjunction with the conference. The first couple of years when we were in person, we got 4 hours to cram 24 hours of stuff into. Last year, we got cut to 2 hours, but this year, we have a 3-hour boot camp on Monday, June 21st, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. It comes free with your convention registration, also youth and adult registration. And we are very, very excited this year because we have we have 2 state legislators who are we're going to have a mock meeting, which is always very entertaining so that our participants can see what it's like to go to a meeting. We also have Tony, I'll get his name wrong, Sandorfino. I have not met him. I've only had the pleasure of talking with him. He is actually going to be leading a session on involving people of color in advocacy.
Wonderful.
So we have some other great sessions planned. You can find those on the NDSC website, but that's just a little bit about it. So
that's fantastic. Well, Rachel, what kind of work are you doing with the NDSC policy and advocacy team?
Heather Sachs invited me to teach people at advocacy training boot camp about social media. I co-presented with Julie with science.
Rothholz.
Sorry.
That's a hard one. Yes.
That's a real hard name to say.
I showed everyone how to make a advocacy video and tag our senators and representatives. I think I have a video of me from here.
Wow. That's wonderful. And I think it's so important, Rachel. I mean, I think probably one of the most important things, I think, Jawanda, you would agree, is that when Rachel advocates, it comes with a lot more power than it would be for any of us to really advocate, because she's advocating for herself so strongly. Why do you think that policy and advocacy work on the national level is so important, just for the regular person who's hearing this podcast? Why would they want to be involved or know more about this?
Well, I think that sometimes families I want to go back just a second.
Yes,
I
please.
want to talk more after I answer that question. I want
Yeah.
us to talk more about the importance of self-advocates and their
Yes.
voices.
Yes.
To your question about why policy and advocacy work on the national level is so important, I think this certainly was true of me, and we hear this from a lot of families. Families don't always understand that the problems they're facing are a result of policy issues that need to be addressed. And it may not totally be something that can be fixed at the local level or state level. Sometimes it is, but often it's something that was done with a policy that was set at the federal level. So they may not totally understand the system. They don't also understand that they truly can make a difference. And that's one of the things that I hope Rachel's going to get to share about how she has gotten to know members of Congress and made a difference. I don't think people realize that they're one voice. You know, we hear all the bad stuff about policy and advocacy and politics, and we don't hear enough of the good stories about how one family and one voice did make a difference. And I think that's part of why national level public policy and advocacy is important. It helps grassroots people understand the importance of their voices and their collective voices that do make change. One of the reasons I'm passionate about sharing our stories is we can show how one family with no connections, we're not rich, we're just regular, ordinary people. I have a sassy girl with Down syndrome. I'm sassy, and we have impacted change, and other people can do that too. And when you can hear other people's successes, it just makes a difference in you feeling like you can be successful. I also think, this is my opinion, but this opinion is shared by a lot of people. NDSC has the best, the leading, the most knowledgeable, the most effective policy and advocacy team in the Down syndrome community, highly respected in the disability community. I don't think people realize the depth of knowledge that comes from the group of people and the positions some of those people have had, the connections they have. They take the lead and are looked to lead on critically important advocacy efforts. They analyze and draft legislation. They work directly with members of Congress and their staffs. They work in coalition with other organizations in training and involving advocates. It's been a joke for years. I tell people I'm the PR girl. So they call me and ask me some deep policy question, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just the PR girl. We have to call Heather, Stephanie, or Ricky, because they're the ones that can read a policy and interpret it. So it's really, really important that we support that work, because it's a trickle down kind of thing. It does trickle down from the federal level all the way to the bottom level.
Yeah. Rachel, that sounds pretty interesting. It sounds like you've made some relationships with some members of Congress as you have self-advocated. So tell me about those relationships you've had with members of Congress.
Well, I started going with my mom to the meetings with elected officials when I was a little. I don't know how old I was.
2.
I was 2 years old. When I was 12 years old, I went to Washington, D.C. and met my congressmen and senators. I told them about my life and my dreams. I gave them a one-pager that told about me. Then I asked them to sponsor bills like the ABLE Act that would help me and other people with Down syndrome and disabilities.
Wow, that is so powerful. You have more to tell me. Tell me.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I'm a public speaker, so of course, I tell them I want to have to sponsor the ABLE Act so I could live my dreams of living in a pink house. Rachel's pink house become a symbol for my march to independence. Then I keep going to see them and send them emails. I make videos, I thank them, and I talk about them on social media. I'm always nice. I talk. I got to be friends with my senators and congressmen with their staff members. Now they call me and my mom sometimes when they are working on something. Sam Moran, is one of my singers I really loved, says I am the best lobbyist.
Hard word. Another one of those hard words.
In Washington D.C. I'm proud to be a voice for people with Down syndrome.
That's so wonderful. And what a powerful voice. You're right. You are a public speaker, and that's a powerful voice that you bring. And I love that. I love that you share your dreams with them and your desires for them too. That's great.
Thank you.
So Jawanda, I wonder if you might be able to tell us a little bit about the NDSC has an Ally for Advocacy campaign that's going on. Tell us more about how we could get involved with that.
They do. It's a very clever new campaign from the National Down Syndrome Congress. We all know that all nonprofits have taken a hit during the pandemic, and NDSC does some amazing work, not just in the area of advocacy, but they came up with with a clever idea, and it's called Ally for Advocacy, and that requires resources to be able to do that. So this campaign is an online campaign. You email, and I don't have her email address handy, but if you will go to NDSC Center and do Ally for Advocacy, you can find it, I think. It's an online campaign where they are trying to get advocates across the country to set up their own online account and try to get 7 people each to commit to a monthly contribution. The goal for the program is to raise $50,000 that will all go to support the Policy and Advocacy Center, the Policy and Advocacy work of NDSC. And it's really easy to set up. And then you can share it on social media, you can share it by email. Then people can, of course, just give something. If they would prefer just to give a one-time gift, they can. But there's people across the country doing the Ally for Advocacy campaign. I think that they're about 25% to their goal, but there's only a few weeks left in the campaign. So we're hoping that some of the people that hear this will think it's important to support advocacy and might join the Ally for Advocacy campaign. And I'm not exactly sure where that is on the NDSC website.
It's okay. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, so it'll go right to that to that section. Yeah, it is so important. You know, our listeners know I spent many years now on the board and spent 3 years as the board president, and we have an amazing advocacy and policy team through the NDSC. You're right. It is the team that gets things done where it needs to get done on the national level, which, as you've described, is so important because that's where the policies that come down and affect our loved ones, that's where they start. And so I think it's so important to have a team on Washington, making these connections, and also people like you guys working with our congressmen and senators to be able to make the changes that need to be made. And this Ally for Advocacy campaign, I think, is a wonderful way of helping to support that work that impacts all of us, which is great. Rachel, I wonder, is there anything else before we close our podcast, anything else that you would like to tell us?
I hope you will support the NDSC Valley for Advocacy campaign. So Heather Sachs and Vicky and Stephanie Reed, who can helping people with Down syndrome. I am Rachel. I have Down syndrome, but I'm not called Down syndrome. I'm Rachel. And I really love my wife. Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, you're not labeled as anything other than Rachel, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'm so excited to be able to get this information out to folks. I appreciate your time joining me today and sharing your expertise with us. And we look forward to hopefully seeing even more support for this program through NDSC Ally for Advocacy and being able to impact things in DC and beyond for people with Down syndrome. But until next time, if anyone has any thing they would like to share with us, any topics you would like us to cover, as always, you can send that to Down Syndrome Center at chp.edu. But until next time, bye-bye.